Welcome to the Unshakeable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main chair meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Bill C., who's come to share on the topic of spiritual condition, do you have one, for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. Bill, it's over to you.
Hey everybody, I'm Bill. I'm an addict. And it's good to be here. Good to be in the UK. And so my sobriety date is March the 27th, 1985. So I've been around a while. And what I'd like to share about today a little bit, I can certainly tell my story, but I get tired of it. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the 10th step. And what it says in the 10th step, it says the only thing that's going to save us is the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So if I'm a newcomer in Cocaine Anonymous, I have a job, and the job is to get a spiritual condition, because when I got here, I did not have one of those. In my experience over the years of working the steps are designed to generate a spiritual condition, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen by me working a couple of steps and all of a sudden now I've got a spiritual condition. That certainly hasn't been my story. Now, when I got here in 1985, I was 37 years old, and I was living with my second wife and a second set of 2 children. My daughter was 3 years old and my son was 3 months old. He got born on Christmas Day, 1984. He just recently had another birthday, and the little bastard's 41 years old. Jesus, I don't know how that happened. And we all grow up. There's 2 ways of looking at getting old, like, oh shit, it's the end, or I made it. And I'm going with I made it, because it wasn't looking very positive several times in my life. So I'm in the house with this second wife and these 2 kids, and I don't have an emotional connection with another living human being. And I don't know that. We don't know that, do we? I don't know that I'm not capable of intimacy or connecting with other human beings until I become capable of that and then realize in the past that I was not capable. I didn't have what it took to have that kind of relationship. In my experience with sobriety, of being clean, is it's about growing up, isn't it? And we love to talk about, people in AA talk about, I have alcoholic thinking, like there is such a thing. And I think what we suffer from is we're emotionally immature. And we'd like to think that we're kind of uniquely neurotic. And I don't think that was true for me, although I felt that way. I mean, I'd been to mental institutions. I've been to therapists and psychiatrists over the years. I know more about myself than is safe to know. But when I look back on it now, I think what was happening when I got sober in 85 is I started to grow up then. And I'm late. Right? I mean, I'm 37. I'm 6'5". I look like I'm grown up, but I'm not. I've got the emotional maturity of a rather disturbed 16-year-old, the one with a bit of a problem with authority. That's me. I barely got out of high school. I was not interested in school. I was drinking and using. At 17, I was a bad drunk in high school. I had a big jacket and a slouch and a sneer and a foul mouth and a bad attitude. And when I got sober at 37, I'm still that guy. There wasn't a lot happened in my life that caused me to grow up through life experience. And that's how we grow up, isn't it? Experientially, not intellectually. We don't read a book and then go, oh, that's my problem, and to stop behaving that way and we're better. It has not been my experience. I've had to learn some things here. So that last night of my drinking and using, there's certain spiritual truths. And all of us talk about being partiers, right? So I think the whole idea was to have a couple of pops and get out of the house and have some fun. I ended up naked in my living room watching religious television, taking notes. And I'm an extrovert, man. I'm a bar drinker. I'm a party guy. I'm that guy. And I'm alone. I weighed well over 300 pounds. I was a big fat ball of sweat. And the only reason you ever been up all night? I'm talking to a meeting full of cocaine addicts. Who slept much, you know? And the reason I'm up all night is because there's certain spiritual truths, and one of those spiritual truths is alcohol plus money equals cocaine. And that's what cocaine's for, is for alcoholics so they can drink more. And so I'm up all night, right? And my little daughter, I don't think there's very few things that are more depressing than when the sun comes up. Because by this time, I'm a vampire. I'm not coming out during the day. You know, when that sun comes up, what I know is it's going to be another miserable day in a long, long line of miserable days. I'm not partying anymore. I'm just surviving. And there's nobody coming knocking on my door asking if Billy can come out and play. You know, that isn't the way it ended up. I'd alienated pretty much everybody from me. I'm alone. Even when I'm with people, I'm alone. So my little daughter, the 3-year-old, got up that morning and she came out in the living room and she was happy to see that Daddy was up. And she crawled up in my lap, and it just broke my heart. It just literally broke my heart. And I think what happened, I've told the story many times. I'm not sure what was really going on in my mind that morning. But I think what happened is I realized at some level that I'm not a husband, I'm not a father, I'm not a son, I'm a nothing. Nobody gets here with a lot of self-esteem. You can't feel good about yourself living the way we live. I don't think that's possible. Maybe some people are completely sociopathic and deluded, but I just knew I was a nothing. So like any good gangster, I called my mother. And this is a woman that had been in Al-Anon for 30 years by this time. My dad got sober in 1954. And those people are organized, prepared, and focused. And she got there inside of a half an hour before I took the nap and changed my mind, loaded me up in the car, and took me out to a place called Starting Point in Costa Mesa, California. And I spent 35 days in this place. While I was in there, they made me wear a sign around my neck. I had to make the sign. We made it in crafts. And it was a rectangular piece of cardboard with a string that went through it, and it said, "I am not a counselor." Because evidently there was some confusion about that. And then they let me out. They just let us out like we're okay, don't they? Go forth, multiply. And I walked into an AA meeting the day I got out of there. I called this guy that was a friend of my dad. My dad gave me his name. And I called this guy, and he says, "I'll meet you down at the Hermosa Beach Alano Club and at such and such a time." And I did. I drove down to this place, and I parked outside. And I'd been to meetings. I'd been to AA meetings with my father back in the 50s when I was a kid. I was 6 years old when he got sober. And clearly the demographic had changed. I walked up to this place, and all the Harleys are parked out front. And it was a meeting called the Gong Show on a Friday night in April in Hermosa Beach. And I wasn't expecting you. I didn't think that this was going to be funny, that it was somehow going to be a party. And everybody was dressed up trying to hook up. You know, this was not some sour pussy sort of thing. People were laughing and joking and hooting and hollering, and nicknames are flying around the room. There was no seats. I stood in the back because it was packed. Who thought that an AA meeting would be packed on a summer day down by the beach in Hermosa Beach? And the first lucky thing happened to me. And I think it's just pure luck because it's not everybody's story. I just liked you right away. I got the joke right away. Now, I wouldn't have described it like that then, but looking back, that's exactly what happened. I heard the music. And I left that meeting that night. One guy got up to the podium to share, and they hooted at him so much he just sat back down. Clearly a very well-loved man in the room. You know, the rules were not being followed. There was heresy all over the place. The foul language that offends some people, it just fit me. I just got it right away, you know. These people had not cleaned up their act. They were not behaving correctly. It was perfect for me. Perfect. And in 40 years in recovery, I've never been bored. And I can tell you, if you're sitting in this meeting tonight and you're bored, it's because you're boring. It's not us. It's not us. You know, I drove home that night and I believe I said out loud in the car, this may not be so bad. So right off the bat, I got attracted. You attracted me. I can tell you, 40 years later, I've never lost that. I find all of you deliciously strange. I'm an old hippie from the 60s. Weird has always attracted me. And I'm very attracted by the weirdness of AA and CA and NA and all the A's, you know. I just think it's a strange place filled with weird people, and I like that. I like it. The second thing that happened to me, and what I really want to talk about, is I asked this guy to help me. You were telling me I needed to get a sponsor. And when I got sober in 85, CA was like 2 years old. And my friend Wayne, who's coming over here after this meeting to take me out to lunch, we got sober together. And he was a CA dude. He was in CA. He actually helped write some of the early literature and stuff back in the day. And so we just went to meetings. So I went to CA. I started going to CA right away, you know, and I identified, you know, and a different group. Yes, very different, you know, especially back then. It was, if you had 9 months sober in Cocaine Anonymous, you were a big deal. It's like, and so, and that's perfect for me because I've always wanted to be a big deal. You know, and I asked this guy for help. The second lucky thing was I asked this guy for help, and he actually helped me, which doesn't always happen, you know. And I asked him, I saw this guy around. He's still my sponsor. I've had the same sponsor for 40 years. I should have fired him several times, but he needs me now. I make him look good, you know. And he's 46 years sober, and he's as enthusiastic as he's ever been. Neither one of us have ever lost that enthusiasm. I asked him one time, why are you and I still around? He goes, because we never lost our enthusiasm for it. He didn't say it's because we worked the steps correctly. We got the best home group in the world. So we've never lost our enthusiasm, and I still think that's true. He said several things to me that night, and one that I remember is he said, I want you to go home and read the doctor's opinion, make notes in the margin of what you agree with and what you don't. Be at my house Thursday at 5 o'clock and we'll discuss it. And we talk a lot about hitting bottom, right? Here's what I think the bottom is. I think what the bottom is that we hit in sobriety as well. You know, and the bottom that we hit is the collapse of the alibi system. Because we all get here emotionally immature. The reason the alcoholic or drug addicted life seems like the only normal one, how do we pull that off? It has to be someone else's fault. We all have a story about them. You can't get here and not know who they are. Those sons of bitches. The ones that sent us here. The world. Like on my first inventory was the entire federal government and specifically the Department of Motor Vehicles. Who the hell are they to tell me whether I can drive or not? Right? I mean, to me, to this day, red and green lights are suggestions. Right? I mean, I've gotten better. I'm a better rule follower, but I don't like the rules, you know? They're only suggestions. Like when you're stopped at a red light tells you what it's there for is when there's cars coming across like that, it's not your turn. Wait till the cars are gone. When there's no cars, it's ridiculous just to sit there. The reason the light's red is when there's other cars in the lane. When they're not there, you just drive through it. Keep things moving, right? So follow the suggestions, but don't mistake the rules for morality. All right? And I still have trouble. I drive to my home group every Monday night. I pick up my buddy Steve Lamb, and we drive there, and there's a left turn there. When there's no cars come, I just drive right through it. Right? And that's 40 years sober, and that's how well I am. But back in 85, Jesus, I know who they are. They're the ones that sent me here. And what happens is that alibi system collapses, and there's a window of opportunity. And when he gave me that instruction, I did not argue with him, which is not my MO. I just went and did what he told me. I hope that you have the gift of desperation, that alibi system will collapse, and you just listen to us a little bit. Just listen to us. Try not to argue too much. Now, I had arguments. I didn't believe in God. The whole God thing is stupid. So I was having difficulty with the God thing. And I would argue with him about the God thing. And he would say things to me like, I don't believe in the God you don't believe in either. Which is confusing because I want to argue. What do you mean by that? Well, it's specifically what an atheist is. If you stop and think about it, an atheist is somebody who creates a God and then doesn't believe in it. So you have to specify what it is you don't believe in, right? Well, my experience in the 12-step programs is God will come and visit you. It's an experience. It's not a concept. If you stick around here long enough, it will, and then you can label it with whatever makes you feel comfortable. But it's experiential. It's not intellectual. When you argue about God, you're arguing about concepts. So I try not to have a concept because I've experienced it, haven't you? It's visited me. And I don't waste my time trying to define what that might be. I just look for the experience. And when you start looking for it, it's all over the place. Right? So we start this process. He tells me, read the doctor's opinion. I show up at his house and he lets me in and he sits me down and he didn't trust me that I'd read it and he had me sit there and read it to him out loud. I've done sponsorship workshops around a good hunk of the world with this man and with others too over the years. Rule number 1 when you're reading the book, don't trust him. Read it with him. Maybe it'll help you out. If I have to read War Fever Ran High in that New England town one more goddamn time, I'm going to blow my head off. And now I'm doing it in Russia on Zoom. Who knew that was going to happen? Who knew that was going to happen? And I began the journey of developing some kind of a spiritual condition that I could later maintain. I went to his house each week and we read a chapter in the book. And we worked the steps when it came up. And I went on the journey. Here's what I believe about the journey. When the pandemic broke out, the last place I flew to go talk to some people was up in Northern California. And when this guy picked me up, he's about my age, older guy. You could tell he'd been around for a long time. Very comfortable, very relaxed, very friendly guy, really nice man. And he picks me up and we're driving in the car to go to the event and he asked me how long I'd been sober. And I told him it was 30-some years. And he said, well, I almost had 30 years. So he knew it was going to be an interesting story. And it was one of those stories where, he's married, met a woman in A, been married a long time, coming up on retirement, life's pretty good. And he's resting on these things called laurels. What's a laurel? Laurel's a past achievement. When I got here, I didn't have any past achievements. But it seems like if I start working the steps, I start working with others, I'm going to generate some past achievements that I can then rest on later on and find out why that's not a good idea. So this thing's going to take some time, isn't it? And that's what happened to this man. He was resting on his laurels. He hadn't drifted away completely. He's hanging out with his buddies, going to meetings. And then he had some surgery, something, and they gave him some pain medication. He took a couple extra pain pills and he started drinking. Common story that you hear. And at the time he's telling me the story, he's 2 years sober again. And he's got a commitment. He's driving the speaker around, It's like he's got a job. And I had dinner with him that night. He was my host, so we sat at the banquet table together, and I talked more further with him. And it really got my attention. It was like listening to myself. Yeah. If you're a speaker guy, you can be a speaker guy and be not sponsoring people, just telling stories if you're a good storyteller. But if I'm not working with people, what the hell am I talking about? What am I talking about? Is it real, what you're talking about? Are you telling the truth? I told my sponsor one time, I was sober sometime, and I said, I think I should quit speaking. There's too much ego in it. I'm way too carried away with myself. And he says, you don't get to pick and choose what you will and won't do. But I suggest to you the next time that you're speaking in front of a group of people, why don't you start telling the truth? They go, what do you mean? I'm not lying. He goes, quit doing theater and talk about what's really going on. We will understand. Who do you think you're talking to? A room full of egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, I started talking about ego. Because about 10 years sober, my life collapsed. Clearly the process wasn't over yet, was it? 10 years sober. And, so each week we go and we read the book, and at 6 months sober, I did an inventory. And he told me after I did my inventory, go be quiet for an hour and reflect on what you've done. And if there's anything you've left out, let me know. And I let him know. There's always something left out. He says, when you go home and you stand on the front porch of your house, think about the guy that walked through that door 6 months ago compared to the guy that's walking through it today. And I did that. I actually did that. I stopped on my front porch and I had what I later would define, at the time I didn't define it, as my first conscious spiritual experience. And what happened when I reflected on it, it struck me. It's going to be like this now. The old life, whatever that was, is over. Something has touched me. Now, at the time that I had that experience, I wouldn't have defined it like that. The feeling came over me. Something came over me. I later defined it like that. Now, sometime later after this experience at 6 months sober, on my atheist search for God, I was sitting with an Indian guru. I was very impressed to be with this man. He's an impressive guy. And I'm sober some years, but I'm sitting with this guy, and he had just given a talk, and my friend Wayne and I went off into this back room with him, just the three of us, and I'm talking away like I do, and this guy starts laughing at me. I said, what are you laughing at? He goes, I just love you alcoholics and drug addicts. I said, why is that? He says, well, the rest of them out there are trying to get awakened. You're just trying to figure out what the hell happened. And what he described to me was, it's already happened to you. You just don't realize it. What's happened? Well, I've been awakened. That's a weird experience, isn't it? Who does that happen to? And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I've never lost my enthusiasm for AA, when I'm talking in front of a group like you right here, most of you here in this meeting are aware of the fact that your life has been saved. Some of you are a little bit more aware of it than others, I'm sure. And you can feel that in the room. My home group on Monday night, the last 2 Monday nights, it's been incredible. You can feel the energy in the room. I feel the energy in the room. And I feed off of that. It keeps me inspired. And I believe that what that is a spiritual condition. That's a spiritual condition, if I can feel that energy. If I go there and I'm going there and it's not all about me, it's about the room, it's about the energy in the room, and about being part of that, not separate. Not going there to get something out of it, going there to bring something to it, to be part of that energy, to be connected to you, to not be hung up and somebody looks at me weird across the room and I think that guy doesn't like me. He's probably just having a gas pain. Nobody's thinking about me. You're all just thinking about yourself, I've reached the point in my life where I don't need validation from others for me to realize that I'm okay. Somewhere along the line, I just came to believe I think I'm okay with all my little foibles and all my arrogance and my pomposity. I'm on to me. I think I'm all right. I think I'm a pretty decent guy. Am I perfect? No, hell no. I don't like hanging out with perfect people. Do you? They're a little weird. I don't think they're spiritually awakened if they think they're perfect. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for reality, man. I'm into reality now. What's really going on? So at 6 months sober, I had this experience. At 9 months sober, I'm making amends. At a year sober, I'm starting to sponsor people now. And the first 10 years I was sober, I wanted to try to make a name for myself in an anonymous organization. Everything was ego driven. I want to look good. You know how they tell you go do something good for somebody and don't tell anybody? I don't know that I've ever accomplished that. I figure if you don't know about the good works I'm doing, it didn't really happen. I'm looking for credit. I want accolades. I want to be worshiped. All that stuff of the emotionally immature. I'm a teenager. And it didn't matter what my motivation was. I did the work. It caused me to do it, and you changed me. The work changed me. It didn't matter what my motivation was. You ever heard speakers say how they hate being speakers because they're the only one looking in that direction? There's too much ego in it. Don't believe them. If we didn't like it, we wouldn't fucking do it, man. What's not to like? You're all being quiet and I'm talking. I'm my most comfortable when I'm the center of attention. That's when I'm mostly comfortable, when I'm the center of attention. Now, is that a character defect or just the reality of me? The saving grace of it is I'm aware of it. That's all you need to be, is just be aware of it. This is how I am. Is it all that I am? No, it's not all that I am. This spiritual condition, what's it made up of? When that guy talked to me and told me about his slip, I came back to LA and I called my sponsor and I said, why are we still here? And he says, because we've never lost our enthusiasm for it. Then the pandemic came and it shut down the world. The world shut down. We lost our meetings. Within a week, my home group were on Zoom. All the techie guys stepped up and figured it out and we're on Zoom. Now what? Now what do we do? Now what's going to happen? And I sat down and I wrote some notes. I made some notes about spiritual condition. I said, what's it made up of? What's happened to me? What's happened to me? If I have a spiritual condition, what's it look like? Am I more spiritual than you? Usually, the whole idea of I want a personal relationship with God, that's an egoic thing. I want my personal relationship, one that's preferably better than yours. Because this is competitive, right? We're all in competition here. That's the way I look at things, So what is this spiritual condition? What is it? Well, the first thing that this man wanted to know from me when he let me into his living room and had me read the book out loud is whether I thought I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. He asked me the question, do you think you're powerless? Can you find yourself the 4 or 5 different alcoholics it shows in here? Which one are you? And we picked out one and a couple of them and said, okay, you're in the book. He said, put a star next to it. This book is about you. It's not trying to convince you of anything. You should be able to find yourself in it. Are you powerless? Now, for me, I was very ill at the time. I was 300 pounds and I was a mess and things were not happy. I wasn't skipping about. My life was a disaster area and I was physically very sick. I had hepatitis C, which they didn't call it that then. It was non-A, non-B, and it's not that bad. They were wrong about that. It's like 8 years ago, this coming February, I had a liver transplant. At 30 years sober, alcoholism almost killed me. I had hep C and I had cirrhosis and I didn't know how sick I was. But if I hadn't got sober in 85, I would have been dead in a couple of years. That's not an exaggeration. When I got sober, I got healthy. I lost all the weight. I changed my diet and I quit smoking it saved my life. You saved my life. You helped me save my life. So the first pillar of spiritual condition, the first aspect of spiritual condition is powerlessness. And no matter what spiritual path you go down, whether it's Christian or Hindu or Taoist or whatever, they all talk about personal powerlessness. So does Alcoholics Anonymous. It talks all the time about how we are personally powerless. I cannot fix or change things outside myself or even inside myself, I've found. I am utterly powerless. So the first pillar of spiritual condition is this powerlessness. Second step says that we're going to be restored to sanity, and it's going to be by a power greater than us. It can't be me because I'm powerless. So all you need to know about God is it's not you. Beyond that, I don't think you're required to know anything else. Some people will tell you that you have to believe in a God to do. I'm living proof that's not true. You know, I think you have to believe that you're powerless. That something else is going to fix me. It's not going to be me. I can't think my way out of this. In and of myself, I am not God. And there are many, many powers that are greater than me. Gravity comes to mind. It's like there's a lot of power. You know, I am not the author of my life. It's simply unfolding in front of me. And the best I can hope for is enough self-awareness to take advantage of what's being presented. People talk about manifesting their future. Good luck. You know, having a positive attitude is certainly helpful, you know, but it's just unfolding right in front of me. There's no morality in nature. Did you know that? There's no morality in nature. That's a construct of man's mind. What some things are good and some things are bad. The truth is things just are. And we label some of it good and some of it bad. But the non-dualist will tell you can't have one without the other. But if you look out in nature, everything out there is eating everything else. It's chaos. I mean, the lion eats the lamb every time. And we say, oh, the lion shouldn't eat the lamb. That's not right. We make up parables like someday in the future, the lion will lay down with the lamb. I bet if that happens, that lamb's going to be nervous for eternity. It's just the nature of the lion to eat the damn lamb. It's just the way it is. And we don't like it. It's not fair. Well, if you want fair, it's in Pomona. You know, I guess life just is. Life's dangerous. Have you noticed that? Life's dangerous. You know. Then I do the inventory. The third step happens. Now, the third step's interesting. The third step says that I'm going to make a decision to turn my life and will over to clearly what already has it anyway. I think it was nice of them to lead me to believe that I actually have some say in the matter. Well, I've been withholding myself from the totality of all things long enough. I'm going to acquiesce now and allow you to take me. Thank you very much. Where's my trophy? Right? And we have these long, windy arguments about the difference between my will and God's will. My little ego loves the idea of us having a battle of wills with the power that drives the entire universe. You know, how is that even possible? And what is God's will? We wonder about that. And I can answer that for you right now. It might be worth showing up to this meeting, get this piece of information. God's will is what's happening right now. What else, I ask you, could it possibly be? And we don't like what's happening right now. We're looking for an alternative. And ladies and gentlemen, there is none. This is it. This is what we get. This is ultimate acceptance. This is what's happening. It doesn't mean I have to like it, but this is what's happening right now. There's no difference. I am not separate from God. There is not something missing. There's no God-sized hole in me. I've got everything I need. I just can't see it. And what a spiritual path is, a really good spiritual path, is a path of subtraction that takes everything from me that's blocking me from already seeing that I have everything I need right now. Nothing's ever been missing. I just have a false sense of separation. And I'm not, nor could I ever possibly be separate from nature. Then the fourth step comes around. And what life and will is the third step talking about? What are we turning over? The inventory. Yeah, and what is it looking for? It's looking for resentment, fears, and broken sexual relationships. That's what I bring to you. That's the end result of living a life with seeming power. This is what I bring to you. And I make a list of that. And somehow we think this is difficult. Well, shit, these people work in my head every night when I go to bed. It's constantly there. I'm just going to write it down. Now, there wasn't much in the fourth column, like what are my faults and mistakes? That first inventory, the one I did at 10 years sober, it was very rich fourth column. I was onto it. I am the source of all the goddamn chaos in my life, and I've always thought it was you. But the truth is, it's me. I'm the source of all the chaos. Doesn't mean you're innocent. But if I choose to engage, that's on me. I'm responsible for how I feel and how I behave, not you. And I've always made you responsible. The reason I'm yelling at you is because of what you said. It doesn't come from a vacuum. If you didn't behave the way you behave, I wouldn't be angry. And when I retaliate, you're responsible for that as well. Now, when you say that out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but isn't that how we live? That's how I live. And at some point in this path, you realize, oh my God, it's me. I'm the problem. I'm the one. I'm the source of all the chaos. But in the fourth step, what are we listing? The principle in the fourth step, the second pillar of spiritual condition, is I have to stop blaming other people and institutions for my problems. High school is over. It's time for little Bill to grow up and take responsibility for his own life. Now, how long do you suppose that's going to take? 20 years? It's been a long, slow process for me to really take responsibility for my own life and stop the blaming. But it begins in that inventory. The beginning, if you surround yourself with some healthy people, they'll help you stop the whining, stop the blaming. And that's been my experience. But this is the beginning of that, where I start looking at what are my faults and mistakes, because that's what we're looking for in the inventory. Then the amends process comes along. Now you want me to go make amends to these people that I'm hate and angry in order to rid myself of the resentment, and I'm not doing that. I'm not about to do that. It makes no sense to me to do this. I just want to forget about it and move on. And we don't do that here. We actually make the amends. And this is when the transformation actually begins. When I go to somebody I don't ever want to see again, and I look them right in the eye and say the words, when I turn and walk away from that experience, I am changed right then and there. It's a cathartic experience. It will change who I am. It's experiential, right? This is experiential. This is where people really drift away, you know. And I drug it on for a while. There was one I didn't make until I was 10 years sober. And after I finally did it, I think, why the hell did I wait so long? But it was embarrassing. It was hard. It was difficult. But this is the transformative experience. This is where the transformation begins. And what's the lesson in the amends process? The third pillar of spiritual condition. Nothing was ever personal. And what's the primary aspect of somebody who's emotionally immature? Everything is personal. It's all happening to me. I'm here to report to you, no, it's not. It's just happening and you're in the room. But it's not focused on you. People are just doing what they do, and I happen to be in the blast radius of their behavior. And sometimes you're in my blast radius, and I'm not focused on you. You're just the next victim in line. I'm just doing what I do. And when I go and make those amends, it changes the story I've been telling all this time. Doesn't mean that nothing happened, but the motivation I placed on it was not real. The story was not true. The events happened, but why they happened and what was going on, that's a whole nother game. Nothing is personal. When those three things come together, I'm powerless, I have to stop the blaming, and nothing is personal. That's the collapse of the egoic structure of who I think I am. This is not necessarily a happy moment. And this kind of self-awareness without humor is depression, right? You standing, oh my God, it's me. It's me. At first, you don't want to admit it. You start getting inklings about it. This has been my experience. And finally, you realize, oh shit, it's worse than I thought. Oh my God, really? Is this real? You know, you start looking at, like, I hated my father, and I started thinking, shit, maybe it was me. Maybe he wasn't so bad. Huh? What do you think? Maybe, what do you think? Changed my relationship with him over time. 10 years after I made amends to him, he made amends to me when the battle between us stopped, when the relationship got safe, and there was nothing to defend anymore. That's when it happened. Don't leave before the miracle. You have no idea what's going to happen here. 1 through 9 is about 10% of the program. It's not the work. It's Sober 101. It's the first semester. It's what we have to do to develop a message with some depth and weight so we can begin the real work. The real work is in 10, 11, and 12. It's 90% of the program. 10 and 11 is about self-awareness as compared to self-obsession. Developing the skill of the watcher where I can watch myself move through life and see what it is I do that blocks me off from the sunlight of the spirit, because nobody else is doing that. It's just me. What I can't see. I start to wake up. In meditation, you can watch yourself think. You can focus your mind on the breath and you'll realize that the egoic mind, the thinking mind that thinks it's you and that you're listening to all the time, you're cursed with thinking and you believe it's real, right? When you focus your mind on the breath, you'll realize it doesn't like that. It moves away. It doesn't like the present moment. There's nothing for it to do. So it wanders away from the breath, and you notice that, and you gently bring it back to the breath. This is a game-changing experience. It becomes very real that who I am is not my thinking mind. It's not the enemy. It's not trying to hurt me. It needs me for transportation. It thinks it's me. It's as delusional as I am, and I'm now starting to wake up. And I realize it's not me. It's part of me. All it does is take the past and project it into the future. It creates nothing. It just takes credit for shit, right? Now what I realize that evidently I don't have to go where it wants to take me. Maybe there's a choice. Isn't this the pause when agitated or doubtful? Meditation is a really great tool to exercise this. And I realize that I don't have to go there. The final thing, the part that's missing in me, the final pillar, the fifth pillar. I can see the character defects, but I don't know what's missing in me. I never developed compassion. I lack compassion. I can't feel you. When I was sitting in that living room with that family, I didn't know that I didn't have any compassion. And as time has gone by and I started working with you, even though I was motivated by self, I fell in love with you. I started caring. The most important fifth step you'll ever be involved in is the first one you listen to. That's when the whole game changes. That's when you realize what my purpose is. The reason I'm here, the reason I got sober is to carry this message, to be with you, to help you, to pass it on. And my sponsor raised me this way. I thought everybody was doing this. I began to exercise the compassion muscle. I started feeling for you. And pretty soon the ego started draining out of it and became an avocation. And I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with all that energy. And it changed me. And I'll leave you with this thought. I know that my time is up. They say you got to give it away to keep it. No, that's not it. You have to give it away to get it. To get what you're really looking for, you have to give it away. That's when the awakening really occurs. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh my God. Where'd it go? Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, hi. My name's Tashia, and I am an alcoholic addict. I'm just blown away by the open talk altogether. I thank you so much, Bill, for your share. I don't want to get caught up in talking too long. My words get twisted, but I do want to share on how I struggle with meditation and prayer at times, and my brain just exploded when you spoke on uh, the part about you know our thinking that it is me, and once I have, start meditating and it drifts off, I can pull it back. And I totally got what you were saying, and it makes so much sense to me. It just made so much sense to me. It clicked. It just clicked for me, like, and I feel like I'm going to do a lot better now. Nobody's ever said it like that, and nobody's ever explained it like that. Now I understand that my thinking is not me. It is not me. It's not who I am, and I don't have to listen to it. Just, it's it's a part of me, but it's not who I am, and it's not something that I have to abide by. It's just mind blowing, and I get it. I get it now. I can't even believe that. So that's all I wanted to say. I identified with the whole thing, but certain parts jumped out at me, and that's one of them. I'm so grateful for this program. So grateful for my life today, just how it is, and for all of you. Thank you guys for letting me share.
Thank you so much to share. Next up, we've got Ark House. Can I just remind everyone it is questions and answers? So if you've got a question for Bill, please put your hand up.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, my name's Carl. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for that, Bill. Took a lot from that. If I was going to ask a question, it would be, I mean, I'm 24 weeks in today, and I'm grateful for everything what I've got so far. But how do I remain grateful and stop letting fear take over everything?
What was there a question there?
Yeah, sorry, Bill. I said I'm 24 weeks in today, and my life's amazing today compared to back then. And I'm grateful. I am grateful for everything. But every now and then, fear's just coming in and blocking everything good out. How would I get past that?
Keep working the steps. Have you got a sponsor?
I will have when I come out of treatment, yeah. I've got 2 weeks left.
Start reading the book and work the steps with your sponsor. Do an inventory. Make the list of amends. Start the amends process. That's how you keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
You stay involved. If all you're doing is going to meetings, you'll get bored after a while. But if you start working the process and you get into that, that's what keeps the enthusiasm going.
Thank you, Bill, for your answer, and thanks, Carl, for your question. Next up, Young.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Danny. Thank you so much, Bill. Hi, everyone. My name's Young, recovered addict. Really good to hear you. I was really interested when you were talking about that first group you went into. I forget the name, but I thought, wow, that sounds really interesting. Did that become your home group? And if so, for how long? And have you always had the same home group, Bill? Thank you so much again.
So that particular meeting was called the Gong Show, and it was a Friday night party. A lot of people said it wasn't really an AA meeting, but I went to it for 20 years. It's like, it's still going on. It's a young people's meeting now, and I'm not a young people anymore. You got to have hair to be a young person. I don't have any hair anymore, so I had to quit going there. My home group is a men's stag. It's a men's meeting. It's called the Hermosa Beach Men's Stag. We got merch. This is my shirt. See, HBMS, motherfucker. And we have a retreat. We're real active. We do a lot. Ralph's been there. Ralph's been to the home group. And it's a very active thing, and everybody in there is sponsoring everybody else. There's a lot of really good positive energy and a lot of humor. And that really works for me, but we're a very, very active group. We're really involved in doing marathon meetings at the different clubhouses. We have a panel that we take to the Salvation Army in Long Beach every week, and we have a retreat that we put on, and so it's a really good, solid home group. There's a lot of humor. I like a lot of humor, a lot of nicknames, but it's a really solid group.
Thank you, Young, for your question, and Bill, thanks again for your answer. Next up, Michael, do you want to come in?
Hi, cheers, Danny. Michael, recovered addict. Thank you, Bill, for your share there. It was and yeah, you had me gripped, like no nonsense. I like even the lion and the lamb. Yeah, the lamb's always going to get you right. So yeah, I don't know if this is too personal a question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And then you can just not answer it. You see, you talk. There's two questions actually. So the first one, obviously, you were talking a lot about your step 10 and that, and I was just wondering, like, what was the last lesson you learned? What lesson did you learn? Sorry, from your last step 10. What was the teachable moment? And then my second question, if I'm allowed to ask this, would be, what would you say to somebody who's struggling to improve their conscious contact with God or a God of their understanding? And thanks again.
So the continuing inventory process, look for selfishness and dishonesty and stuff. I don't know that ever stops. A lot of people are really good at journaling, and they'll journal every day and I have guys that send me 10 steps all the time, and try to stay current with me, their sponsor, and I think that's good. I don't think the process ever ends. What's happened to me recently, that's happened within the last couple of years, is I started praying out loud. And, I've had some health issues. You see this big thing, they keep cutting skin cancers off of me. And, I'm getting old now, and so you got aches and pains and stuff, and you start worrying about things, and you catch yourself worrying. You realize I'm the source of all that. That's where it all comes from me. Life is what it is. Am I in acceptance? Am I in fear? If these are my last days, am I going to spend it in fear? I would rather not. I'd rather not waste my time being afraid of something that hasn't happened yet. So I started praying out loud. And the reason I pray out loud is it's more dramatic, and I'm very dramatic, and it seems to have more significance. I'm not just mumbling some prayer. It's me being the center of attention again. It's crying out loud, please help me, you son of a bitch. You said you'd help me, now come across. It doesn't matter. But I think the key to prayer is sincerity, isn't it? Now, I joke around a lot. One of the things that hit me, there was a guy coming over here to talk with me, and he had some real anger issues. I was trying to work with this guy, and I really didn't know what to do. He's a very angry guy, and he was coming over, and I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now, and I had the window I can see out when somebody walks in the backyard. And I prayed out loud, and I said, please, God, help me help this man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Please help me help this man. And I really meant that. I really want to help. I really want to help you if I can. I really want to help you. And sometimes that help doesn't come from pearls of wisdom that I send out that say, oh, wow, Bill C. told me that. It isn't like that. What happened when that man showed up and he sat in my backyard and I went out there, I think he could feel me connect with him. And the conversation we had a different tenor to it. There was a connection that came. And I think he could feel that what happens when I pray like that, it changes something in me that changes my perception of what's happening around me. It doesn't change the situation. It doesn't save somebody's life. It doesn't make the rain go away. It doesn't, it isn't like it changes something in me. When I pray with real sincerity, something changes in me that changes the dynamic that I'm having with what's actually happening. And at the end of that conversation with this man, we both had tears in our eyes. I don't remember anything I said. It was mostly listening. I think he could feel me really connect with him, and he relaxed. He realized I was not a threat. That's how I determine that. Prayer works? Yes, I think it does.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, for your question, and Bill, thanks again for your answer. Last up, we have Andrew. Andrew, do you want to come in?
Good evening, England, and good evening, my American cousins from the frozen north. Thank you all for the meeting. I have a question for our lead share tonight, Bill C. I'm told, and I now believe, that these tissues, which I never paid attention to, really do direct my life. These small feelings, these small selves, these small everythings. And once, because I blotted everything out. I didn't want to be on the planet from the get-go. My earliest memories. Sober and having to come to the recognition that I've got to be there for my fellow brothers and sisters. It took me a while to recognize that they have these same tissues that run their lives. And you mentioned that it finally took you a while to realize with your young children that you had to be there for them and think like they do, sort of, and put yourself in the halls of their minds. When did this first happen to you, that you had to really think outside of yourself?
I think somewhere in this process, I realized that I wasn't capable of being truly intimate with other people. most of us, I think, at some time or another in our sobriety, there's somebody that stands right in front of us and says, "You are not emotionally available for me." And my response is, "What the hell are you talking about?" That's when we start talking about how men are different than women and all this. We make excuses. And why does she always want to talk to me? Why does she, we have those kinds of conversations. Once again, blaming the other person for the emotional upheaval in our life. And at some point we stop doing that and we realize what they're saying when they say that is that I've got something that they want and I'm withholding it. And you begin to realize I don't have it. And you've convinced me that I've got it and I'm helping you look for it. And this dance is going to go on forever. And at some in that process, I realize I don't have what they're looking for. I don't connect. And it's not their problem. It's me. There's something missing in me. And the mechanism that this spiritual path uses to develop that compassion within us, to get some spiritual growth, to have some depth in my personality, to be less self-centered, more other-centered, is sponsorship. And my contention is that if we come into this fellowship and we don't do that, it never develops. If all we're doing is going to meetings and being of service and flipping hamburgers, all that stuff is good. But if I'm not really doing the work, the intimate work with another human being, another addict, I'm never going to be able to carry that lesson learned from that interaction into my home life, into my work life. I'm going to remain self-centered. That's the second surrender. That's the collapse of the ego. Between 8 and 12 years sober, something happens with the persona, the new persona that I used to be the phony biker with a clip-on earring. I became the phony AA guru. Little healthier, same shit, right? And I did an inventory at 10 years sober where I began to realize I'm the source of all the chaos in my life. I'm not capable of intimacy. I'm full of shit. And I'm blaming you for it. Sober. I'm doing the same stuff that I did out there. That's the second surrender. At 20 years sober, there was another shift when I got sick and I started meditating and praying with real intent because I need spiritual help, not some bullshit concept of it, but I need some real help. And I started crying out for help. I need help. And I believe I received that. It didn't look like what I was looking for, but I started having experiences with it. That's emotional depth. That's spiritual condition. Spiritual condition is emotional depth, where I can feel you. I feel you in my life. I'm not just interacting with you. It's not an arrangement. It's a real relationship. And I don't fear that relationship anymore. So it's a journey. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share. This has been very fascinating.